India's our top story. Donald Trump thanked his supporters and described it as a magnificent victory for the American people as he made one of the most stunning comebacks in the US political history with his win over Kamala Harris. He also referred to the July 13 assassination attempt and said God spared his life for a reason. The 78-year-old has secured more than 270 electoral college votes needed to defeat his opponent, incumbent Vice President Kamala Harris in the US presidential elections. Trump has bagged 280 votes while Kamala Harris is at 224. As America stands on the precipice of a second Trump presidency, uncertainty reigns. The nation braces for deep political divisions, dramatic shifts in policy, and a world that may look very different in the coming years.
But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends in this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Prime Minister Narendra Modi dialed Donald Trump, congratulating him on his spectacular victory, saying that India is looking forward once again to working with him and bettering relations in technology, defense, energy, space, and several other sectors.
What sources are saying is that President-elect Trump told Prime Minister Modi that he considers India and Prime Minister Modi a very good friend and a true friend of his. He also said that Prime Minister Modi is one of the first world leaders he has spoken to after his victory. It was rather an interesting conversation which played out between the two leaders, in which President Trump sources said that the whole world, in fact, loves Prime Minister Modi and that India is a magnificent country and Prime Minister Modi is a magnificent man. He also this is interesting in the form that Gargi we have seen that how in the last 10 years of Prime Minister Modi, the foreign policy has been very personality-centric, in which he has made an effort to strike a very personal rapport with all the world leaders. And he and Donald Trump in particular, from 2016 to 2020, when Donald Trump was the president for the first time, there was a bonhomie, and India-US ties, saw collaborations across several sectors. And that's what I think is being highlighted here, where the two leaders are looking forward to working with each other. What has been highlighted again is an interesting development in terms of the two leaders, what sources say, affirming on world peace as well.
The Congress on Wednesday announced 5 guarantees in Maharashtra as a part of its manifesto for the upcoming elections. The first is 3,000 rupees per month to women and free bus travel for women and girls under Mahalakshmi Yojana. The second guarantee is loan waiver of up to 3 lakh rupees to farmers an incentive of 50,000 for regular loan repayment. The third promise is conducting a caste-wide census in the state and strive to remove 50% reservation limit. The fourth guarantee includes health insurance of up to 25 lakh rupees and free medicines.
Hours after Maha-Yuti government put out their manifesto talking about several important things and more importantly about increasing the Majhi Ladki Bahin Yojana from 1500 rupees to 2100 rupees per month, Mahavikas Aghadi has also put forth 5 guarantees, and one of the guarantees there includes an equivalent of Majhi Ladki Bahin Yojana. In fact, the Mahalakshmi Yojana, which the Mahavikas Aghadi promises to bring if it is elected to power, promises as much as 3,000 rupees to women in the state per month, and besides that they also promise free travel, free bus travel to women and girls across the state. Now besides this, there are several other important guarantees made in this particular manifesto put forth by Mahavikas Aghadi as well. Talking about the health insurance, they are promising health insurance up to 25 lakh rupees. We've seen that both Maha-Yuti and Mahavikas Aghadi had been talking about the safety and the money that is given to the farmers through different means. We saw that there were several promises being made by Maha-Yuti government as part of their manifestos, and even by the Nationalist Congress Party, Ajit Pawar faction, who released their manifesto a while back. They talked about waiving farm loans, although they did not really specify a number. But as far as Mahavikas Aghadi is concerned, they've promised to waive off the loans to the farmers up to 3 lakh rupees. Besides that, they also promise an assistance of 50,000 rupees to those people who make timely repayments of the loans. We are also seeing that the important part of this entire manifesto is caste census. Caste census has been one of the top guarantees by the Congress, by the Congress party, by the Congress government across the country, in different parts of the country. We've seen that it was promised in Karnataka, it was promised in Telangana, it was also promised at the national level before the Lok Sabha elections, and even in Maharashtra, caste census is one of the important points which is mentioned here in the manifesto. Rahul Gandhi, while talking about caste census, very categorically mentioned that the intention behind introducing this is to destroy the 50% ceiling which restricts people, the backwards, the minority, the women, even the poor amongst the general castes to go or to rise up the ranks in different professions.
The Supreme Court on Monday directed all trial courts to order victim compensation to women and minor children in cases of sexual assault and other cases involving bodily injuries while passing judgment. A bench of Justices B.V. Nagaratna and Pankaj Mittal passed the direction while hearing a plea filed by a man convicted for rape and assault on the various provisions of IPC and the protection of children from sexual offences of the POCSO Act. Further, the court directed the district and legal state service authorities to swiftly implement its direction to ensure that victims in such cases are paid compensation in the quickest manner. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah appeared before the Mysuru Lokayukta and was questioned on the Muda land allotment controversy for the first time today. His wife was questioned a few days ago, and even as the Chief Minister made a political statement with the way he arrived at the Lokayukta office, BJP organized protests against him in Mysuru. The political exchange over the controversy is only getting sharper. My colleague Pratibha Raman reports from Mysuru.
Karnataka's CM Siddaramaiah making a political statement, reaching the Mysuru Lokayukta office without a security and official convoy for being questioned for the first time in the Muda controversy. 12 days after his wife Parvati was questioned, Siddaramaiah was quizzed for 2.5 hours before he resumed his campaign for the upcoming by-election in 3 rural Karnataka constituencies.
ಕೇಳಿದ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕೇಸ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ವಿಚಾರಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸತ್ಯ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
During the interrogation, as per CRPC provisions, the questioning was video recorded. 6 officers are involved in the investigation. 3 officers conducted the CM's interrogation. The Chief Minister requested to be interrogated like a regular citizen with no preferential treatment. Around 10 to 15 witnesses, apart from the 4 accused in the FIR, have been questioned. The deadline for submitting the final report is December 24th. Before being taken into preventive custody by the police, the BJP staged a Go Back Siddaramaiah protest in this city, considered the CM's backyard.
ನೀವು ಭ್ರಷ್ಟಾಚಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಳುಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದು ಜಗತ್ತಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸಂಗತಿಗಳು ಬಯಲಾಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿದ್ದರೆ CBIಗೆ ವಹಿಸಿದಾಗ ಸತ್ಯ ಹೊರಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಆಗ್ರಹ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳು ನಿಜಕ್ಕೂ ನನ್ನ ತೆರೆದ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ನಂದು ಅಂತ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೀವು ಪ್ರಾಮಾಣಿಕರಿದ್ದರೆ ಲೋಕಾಯುಕ್ತಕ್ಕೆ ಬದಲು CBIಗೆ ವಹಿಸಬೇಕು. ಲೋಕಾಯುಕ್ತನೇನೂ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುವಂಥ ಸಂಗತಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ನಾನು ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಒತ್ತಾಯ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
The questioning of Siddaramaiah by Mysuru Lokayukta officials is enough fodder for the BJP. Whether this investigation will bear consequences on both the impending by-elections as well as Siddaramaiah's political career is something that needs to be closely watched. With camera person Govind Pratibaraman in Mysuru for NDTV.
Dr. Ravi, really appreciate your time. Do you think this verdict of the Supreme Court is now, in many ways, crystallization of economic liberalization of India? When individual rights come ahead, take priority of the state?
So, Maria, long-term economic growth is really an outcome of right of individuals to private property, and having an independent judiciary which can protect the right of individuals' property from being expropriated by other individuals as well as by the state. I think it's very important to understand that the laws have to be such that private property expropriation is not only protected against other individuals, but by the state as well, because the state is your most powerful entity and a very important part of the economy. Now, since the late 70s, it became very clear to us by early 90s that the policies of nationalization and heavy bureaucracy and this whole license permit Raj, it denied generations, right? I mean, it denied hundreds of millions of Indians from prosperity, and subsequent growth that we have had since 91. Has been on account of the fact that private property is encouraged. And I think the latest ruling that came out yesterday is a very welcome step. In some ways, it reverses significantly the laws enacted and the broader climate under which Indian economy has been functioning till now, which is denying individuals complete individual rights to private property. So it's a very welcome step.
Okay, so then, Dr. Ravi, would you then say that there have been some reasonable checks on nationalization post this verdict?
Well, it basically tells you now there are checks on the state from, taking over properties, which is what nationalization was, by the way, right? And after that, we saw what the outcome was. But you need now, there is enough evidence to see that the recent growth we have had is on the back of course, facilitating government policies, but fundamentally private enterprise. It's Indians and their hard work which is leading to creation of, these wonderful growth across the country, which we are enjoying, on account of which hundreds of millions of people have come out of poverty and so on and so forth. But the basic law still existed, the one of the late 70s, which basically did give the state extraordinary powers to expropriate and take over private property. So yesterday's ruling is very welcome, because now the state is prevented, in a very major way from having rights over private property and basically taking over private property. So those checks basically mean that efforts of excessive nationalization is checked. By the way, it is not just the state, right? You also have to think of what policies are, how people think. if you remember in the midst of COVID, when a very large number of economists had also floated the idea that we should just, the state should take over jewelry and land and, property, whatever it sees fit to overcome the COVID crisis. And many of us actually wrote vehemently against it because, of course, the law is what allows the state to function, but the general sense and the general philosophy which drives people and society, I think had become excessively shackled after the late 70s under Mrs. Gandhi.
But ma'am, I'm looking at the dissenting judgment now. Justice Dhulia, in his dissent, had actually said that excluding privately held property from the purview of Article 39B disregards the practical reality that certain private resources might indeed benefit the public if it is distributed equitably. So do you think that argument of what directive principles mean is also being revisited in many ways and some form of public welfareism as well?
Yes, absolutely. And more recently, if you realize over the last couple of years, the kind of dangerous rhetoric you are hearing, even within electoral politics, jitni abadi utna haq, we will do a survey of private property. By the way, private property is, hardworking people earning and creating assets and wealth. I don't think the state should have absolute right to take over. So I think this is really, this judgment goes back to the original thinking that we had, which protected individuals' fundamental, rights. And of course, right to property was not a fundamental right. But in many ways, post-70s, the state had been empowered excessively to expropriate whatever, whenever it saw fit, right? It deemed fit. And we have seen, by the way, that getting used, not just during the nationalization phase of banks, etc., but very large segments of the economy. More recently, whether it is a retrospective tax, whether it is the coal allocations, when the courts themselves basically annulled 18 years of reality that existed in the energy sector. I think yesterday's ruling puts a certain check on that, which is a very welcome check, right? Because it sort of shifts the needle back to the original thinking, which is that individual private property must be protected. And of course, when there are extraordinary conditions and situations, the state has the power to basically use and take over resources, but those are now thankfully restricted even by the law. So I think it's a very welcome step, and this is going to embolden the basic private property, the way individual rights have to be empowered for long-term economic growth and development of a nation like ours.
My last question to you, Dr. Shamika Ravi, in this particular case, you had the government of West Bengal, which is of course an opposition ruled state, supporting the arguments which was made by the government of India and the Maharashtra government. Would you then say that this judgment has charted a middle path that resonates with India's economic growth ambitions, that you have to respect individual property rights as much as social welfareism?
Oh, absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. And I'm glad that states in opposition are also finally rising over short-term politics and thinking about what is good for the country, for the society, for individuals at the end of the day. So I do believe yesterday's ruling is a correction. It's a much needed and long-awaited correction. So opposition parties joining in only reinforces that. I think this is almost like a commonly held belief, which for long was suppressed. And even if you look at private investments over the last, let's say, a decade and a half, in reinstating these kind of rights, and individual rights over property is a booster. It boosts the confidence that if you work hard and you make wealth, then the state, the laws are going to protect you from other individuals expropriating, or even the state, right? So you need that kind of a protection. There is a fundamental nature in which our growth, our recent growth in our society has moved. And this law is really doing a catch-up game to what is the reality of Indian economy today, which is leading to very fast growth and very, very rapid improvement in our development indicators across the country.